Yo, what's up, guys? It's Talon. Today we're going to be coaching a Kai'Sa player who's currently Master. We coached them before on Varus, and they said like that had been going really well. They've been climbing and whatever, and then now they wanted to start having some coaching on Kai'Sa when they shifted to this. So the main focus of this coaching, a lot of it in the early game is going to be about understanding prio and how that all works, and then later on in the game as well, sort of understanding how to determine how a team fight's going to go, kind of how to plan before a team fight so that you're not as surprised by certain factors that pop up during the fight. But yeah, if you guys are interested in coaching yourself from a rank 5 sovereign autofill player, just DM me on Discord, Talon1169, or through the link in the description to my Discord server. You can find me there as well. But yeah, let's just get right into the video. So what's caused the change to Kai'Sa? Are you like still playing both? Or are you mostly doing Kai'Sa, or what's up with that?
I was struggling against big tanky teams as Varus, and I was just tired of being like really immobile. Like Kai'Sa's obviously super mobile, so it's just a nice change.
Gotcha. What do you feel? Have you feel like you have any like different issues because of playing Kai'Sa, like that you haven't had, or any like specific things, kind of?
Well, Varus is obviously super strong in lane, and I feel like Kai'Sa's the exact opposite, really. Like I feel like laning phase is really tough. Certainly against like Lucian, Draven, those type of AD carries.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely true. Like obviously the lane phase is harder. Her lane phase though, compared, like it's not like mega weak because she has really good all-in, but obviously the range is the problem, and also like trading in minions because of your Q. But yeah, like so we can try to focus kind of on lane. I don't know if the second game's into a harder lane because it's the hardest lane. But the first thing is like here you should be walking up and autoing this already. It's a lot more important. Whereas like when you're Varus, you're kind of sitting here, your first ability, you get to stand pretty far from the wave, just poke whatever. But when you're playing a short range champion, especially into a longer range champ, but really into every type of champ, it's really important to have that initial prio on the wave. Because if you don't have the prio on the wave and you don't have it initially pushing, the enemy are going to really easily be able to walk up and just punish you whenever you do try to walk up. So because you're standing in the bush next to your teammate for so long, when you should at this point be on the right side, and you should have probably been on the right side, let's say 5 seconds earlier on the wave, now you really don't have nearly as much prio. And then the second thing is on Kai'Sa, you're just allowed to Q one time at the start of the wave. So like just pretty much, let's say whenever you do start autoing the wave, just auto and then Q right away, because the only goal is to get pushed in this lane. Like you're not trying to trade level 1. Your goal is to clear minions very quick, because obviously your Q damage, right? It's way more when you're isolated, so you're trying to get that push a lot faster, and you're allowed to use 1 Q for it. And then if you had prio here really quick, because the wave should already be cleared, you'd be able to ward their Krugs right now. And one of the biggest issues with playing a late game, ADC is like getting that proper vision, whereas instead you see how you did this ward, right? This ward doesn't give you information. Like it feels nice to have a ward like this, but these words generally don't give you much, because how well do you kind of understand jungle? Do you understand jungle tracking pretty well, or not really?
Not really, I would say.
Okay, then we'll explain a little bit why this word's not the most valuable. So there's going to be 2 options that any decent jungler is going to do. They'll start Krug/red, they'll do their red side, then they'll go blue side. If they do that, then they're not going to come back to your side of the map until roughly 2 minutes and 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And so this ward would already fade away, and you wouldn't really get any value from it if they did that. Now let's say they did the other thing where they did blue side and then into red side. Well, then they'll come and gank you or be on your side around, let's say, most likely around 130 to 150. Again, obviously depends on the game, but this is going to be the most common timing. And so when you ward like this, well, how are they going to typically gank or like clear, right? They're going to, let's say if they are putting you in danger, so they start blue side. They clear all their blue side, they clear all the red side, they end up on their Krugs as their last camp. And so now they're going to come here, they're going to go through here, and say you are gankable here, right, on this wave, you're not even going to spot them, like with this ward, or they could go here, right? Like they could have a lot of paths, basically. And sometimes your ward might catch them, very often it might not. Whereas if you were to camp, 95% of times they're going to clear their Krugs before they gank you, because he's going to want to hit level 5, right? He's going to want to actually get his camps and then just go on to you right after. So you're basically always going to spot him with this word, whereas you're not always going to spot him with this word. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is when you are... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's the equivalent of that on the other side of the map?
You would ward blue, ideally.
It's a bit more dangerous going up into their blue, isn't it?
Ideally, you ward blue. So there's sort of a... You know how people like most often will control ward? Do you know that they'll usually control ward their blue if they
Yeah,
start red side? Yeah. And so what you would often want to do, there's like a little kind of patch. It's a little hard to sort of show you right now, but there's a little patch where the control ward that's placed in that bush wouldn't spot it, and then you'd get vision of their gromp, and you can also see the blue. Like you can see when they're walking there. So ideally you do that, but even if you ward the blue and it gets spotted by a control ward, when you see that, like all you need is the information of when that blue was cleared. So like, let's say that again, you push level 1, you go and ward their blue, there's only 2 options. The blue's going to be gone or the blue is there. If the blue is gone, you know he's going blue side to red side, and again, you're not going to be worried about a gank until like 2:30 at the earliest. And then, you know, if it isn't cleared yet, you know he's going to path towards you. Maybe you get ganked around 1:30 to 1:50. So does that kind of make sense in terms of like the early game warding and why we'd prefer to do like warding a camp if we can?
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah, but I do want to also reiterate, this is because you have a lane matchup where you have prio. If you are into, let's say, Draven Thresh, you're going to have to probably do a safe ward, right? Because you're going to be pushed under your turret. And so in that case, let's say that you're getting pushed here, you just grab a quick ward onto this bush. Because like it'll sometimes spot a gank, right? And so it's better than nothing. Because there's no way you're going to ward up here when you're into a Draven. So if you have a bad matchup, you do that type of ward that you're kind of doing anyway. And then yeah, again here, I think you can use Q more. You should use Q right now to clear wave. The reason that it's really important to kind of get the Q is so that you can get this wave to crash under their turret before the next wave reaches, because you can see how this wave's like currently coming, right? And if you let this wave like get frozen like this, what ends up happening is they're going to be able to build up a really nice slow push, and then it's really, really hard for you to trade into them because they're going to have 6 minions and you're only going to have 4, because like these 2 will die quicker than these, because you know the other minions will come up there since you're pushed forward. And so it's pretty important to get this wave to kind of crash under that turret, or else the enemy are going to be able to have a level diff as well, because they're going to have these 2 extra minions that you don't have yet. And so if they play properly around their prio, they're going to get level 3 first. They're going to start getting that slow push. They're going to crash the first wave, and then they get to recall with their 900 gold for boots before you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with Kai'Sa, you're not recalling for boots, but still same premise. But yeah, because I guess you're usually, are you Terminus first, right? You're doing, or?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask a question about that, actually. Sometimes, like, I get BF sword and then I've got 400 gold left and I buy boots to speed. I don't know whether that's the right thing to do or just rush Terminus completely.
Nah, I mean, for me, like, this, you could say, is a preference choice overall. For me, I'm definitely going to do just insta rush Terminus, because it is actually pretty common that I'm hitting, say, 3,400, 3,500 gold right before drag, but I'm not getting to 38, which is how much you'd need to get both, and hitting that spike before drag is really important. So for me, I'm definitely just not going to do boots until after first item. But like, you know, it's sort of like, let's say you're in a matchup like into a Thresh, right? Juking him's kind of important. That movement speed might matter. And so if you determine that you need that movement speed to juke a hook and you have that 400 gold, you can do that. But personally, I wouldn't. And then going into this again, it's kind of the same thing where you're just not understanding the prio. And I'm gonna wager a guess that this is also your problem into matchups that are actually hard. Because like we said, this is actually a pretty easy matchup for you. And that's why you're probably not gonna like actually die or anything. You're not gonna get pressured really hard. Is that you're not controlling the wave. And it's like a level 3 Kai'Sa beats a level 2 Draven, you know, as an example of like a hard matchup, right? You're still going to win these matchups, and you still have to take the advantage when you can. And even if a Draven or a Lucian ends up getting an auto on you, if you get an auto Q, your trading is fine. So like, you don't have to be so scared about like these matchups to like such a large degree where you're letting them push when they don't need to. Like if they're pressuring the wave really well and they do a really good job of it, then you can be in this position. But like if we're looking here, there's no reason you shouldn't be auto queuing this wave. So basically I'm going to say that, you know, like you're going to be able to queue waves a lot more is going to be kind of like the thing to get this prio. And you can also be targeting the higher health minion. Like here, instead of autoing this minion, you're going to want to auto this cannon, because you're going to be like safe enough. You have a Braum here. If they do walk up to auto, then obviously you're going to walk back, right? But you're trying to get that damage onto the higher health minions, so then they're all low enough where your Q is going to kind of like end up finishing them off or something. And then you use that sort of quick like Q kill on minions to get the XP. And then, you know, potentially level diff them, because then, like, say you hit level 3 eventually before them, third ability onto them with the attack speed. Like, does that kind of all make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Would you level up third ability second, or go with the second?
So I go second ability second 95% of times, but there's going to be like those rare cases where maybe you like say you just hit level 2 and then for whatever reason your jungler ganks, or maybe just your Thresh like flashes onto them, right, or something. And then you're like, oh, I need to run to get closer. So it'd be like a rare thing where you're like, oh, I just need to get that movement speed for this specific scenario. But definitely 95% of the time it's W. The only other time it's E is like, again, you level up right away and then you realize you're in danger. And then and as well in terms of Kai'Sa mechanics, this is sort of a mini thing, but it's something that matters later. But like for here, it doesn't really matter. But that's just auto between abilities. Like there's no reason you shouldn't be autoing the high health minion and then queuing. But you just queue here. You see how you queue first? You should auto queue.
Yeah.
And then also every single Kai'Sa ability, all 4 of them are all auto attack resets essentially. 3 of them literally is in the first, second, and fourth and ult. And then the third ability you're supposed to auto, then third ability in between. Again, so basically you have to be autoing in between every ability. If your ultimate, like this is a really big thing. Like if you have your ultimate, you auto attack someone, you auto attack again, and then you immediately ult, you auto. And you're getting that additional like auto, so it's like important for the DPS when you're in like a close fight where you're not sure if you're gonna actually kill. And so that's the first thing, is like I can tell you're kind of not squeezing those like little advantages. Obviously, again, this lane phase is pretty boring. No matter who's playing this matchup, most likely nobody's really gonna die, like unless someone's playing really, really bad. But you should have a lot more prio, a lot more pressure, because again, you can see this is the timing when you want to have prio because you want to crash for BF sword. So like normal timing of an ADC is often 900 gold. For you, it's 1,000 because you want BF sword back, right? So you're wanting, again, to be setting up like this current wave that we're on, we're wanting to crash ideally. So again, I kind of spoke about it, but I sort of want to like, you know, really reiterate the fact that like, let's say this wave you had pushing, we spoke about how you could have had that pushing. Well, then you see how far this wave is, like this wave's not coming for a while. And so you would really quickly push this wave, immediately recall for BF sword because it's going to give you enough gold, and then that BF sword back you get back. And now there's 2 options, right? It's either they're recalling and then you come on a BF sword, but you get there first because you crash the wave first, and then you have prio over the next wave, which allows you control once you're gonna about to hit level 5 to, you know, get more vision, again, ward another camp or something, or to rotate if you need, or just to have pressure. And obviously that's beneficial because a lot of people, what they do on these late game champs, they're turtling. But the reality is the best way to alleviate pressure from yourself is actually to have the wave pushing. Obviously, if it gets frozen on you, that's tough, and we can kind of talk about as well, like how to deal with getting frozen on, or how to avoid ourselves getting frozen on as well. But definitely like that prio thing is important, and then using the abilities to get that prio, and then yeah, we would have these recall timers, where then, like let's say you did get a BF sword back against Draven, and Draven greeted and didn't recall. Well, then you're stronger than Draven, you know, like, and I keep using Draven example just because he's like the obvious, right, like early game kind of champ that's really hard for us, but this could be true of pretty much any champion. So
yeah, super useful. Thank you.
I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do, right? So
Yeah,
I don't think you need to
true.
thank me. But again, here, even the same thing. So again, this is where we want to think about our goal. The purpose of this, again, as we spoke about, is to recall as quick as possible. And then you use a random second ability on this guy. Like I think you just used it, or maybe used it right here, yeah. So this second ability, if we're actually going to think about it, we're not pushing, so like we don't have the level advantage. We don't have any recall, so we're literally just on a longsword, so we have pretty low damage. We don't currently know where enemy jungle is because we didn't get the warding information. And our jungler is not a good early game jungler where it's like not that likely that Fiddlesticks is going to get a really nice kill or whatever. So poking down a little bit of Nami HP where she also has heal basically does nothing. Whereas let's say that you use your second ability on the big, you know, the cannon to get your passive quicker, then you auto it, you try to kill it. Now you're still going to be able to recall before them because they're going to probably be dumb and not clear this wave fast enough. And then you get a free recall, same thing. So it's just that constant understanding, like, again, our goal right now is to recall. And that's the difference. Whereas like your goal a lot of times as Varus is to push that advantage really hard. But sometimes here you're just happy with taking a recall and then being fine with it because, again, we are Kai'Sa. If the early game goes even, we're fine. I want you trying to squeeze things, but if the early game goes even, we're still happy with it. And then here you can see the exact same mistake that they made, right? Where they let these 2 minions live when they should have been crashing it quicker. And so now you're actually getting the exact same slow push that they just got, where you have 6 minions to their 4, and now you get to crash. And so hopefully here you crash, and again, just every time start targeting the big minion, because the cannon you can actually build your full passive on, right? But this minion will die before your passive gets procced. So that's just a small thing for wave clear. Doesn't really matter too much, but still nice. And then yeah, you would have this pushed, and you just get to recall really quick. Whereas here, I'm gonna hope that you do recall. I don't care that your Fiddle's here, but we should immediately recall, which I think you end up doing. So that's good. But yeah. Oh, you end up getting stopped. I mean, a little unlucky. I don't think there's anything to talk about. Just unfortunate. Hopefully you cleanse.
Could have gone.
You could have just cleansed a lot earlier here and you wouldn't actually die. I would say this is an issue I watch with a lot of people. Is like they're just too afraid to waste their cleanse. It's not that long of a cooldown, and like you'd way rather do that than have to burn your flash later. So just like again, you should anticipate, right? Like Anami is running at you. What's she probably gonna do? She's gonna try to bubble you. So if the bubble lands, immediately cleanse. And that's kind of a really important thing about short range ADCs, especially, is spell tracking, where it's like obviously, right, Nami's walking at you, she's gonna CC you. Maybe Nautilus walking out, he's gonna ult you, whatever. And so you need to be like, okay, I know that this is the spell that the enemy are gonna use. I know this is how they're gonna react. I need to think, what do I have something to specifically respond to them? And if you do, you just do it a bit quicker. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a big problem of mine actually. Like I try and hold on to it. I think it's in the next game. You'll see. Like I could have killed the Wukong easily, but I sort of didn't cleanse his ultimate. So yeah, I need to work on that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a newer spell. It's kind of a weird thing to get used to. So, I mean, it's understandable. Yeah. But yeah, spell tracking is kind of the biggest thing for that, because then, like, you will find yourself in different parts of the game where you realize, if you go through the proper checklist of, oh, this champion has this spell that's dangerous to me, this champion has this spell, well, then you'll realize, okay, I actually don't need to cleanse X spell, because I'm going to need to cleanse this other spell later, because that one's a more dangerous or a longer stun, or what, you know, whatever it is. So like these types of things to keep in mind are important. And then there's a couple of mechanical misplays here as well. Again, the wave clear thing, we don't need to harp on it, but you need to be making sure your Q's hitting multiple minions, because you queued a singular minion with one that was one auto away from dying. So your wave clear is slow, and again, target the bigger minion faster. And then when you are getting ran at like this, and you like eventually do it, but you weren't really aware of it initially, is the sort of like right here, you see this guy on your screen. You should be able to react immediately, third ability upwards, auto attack him, ult behind. But you can kind of see how you do it. You're sort of panicking, you try to run back, and then you're like, oh, now I'm going to run here, and then you auto him, and then luckily he knocks you this way, so you get to ult back. But this could be a lot smoother with third ability up immediately, auto attack, and it's just like a really clean escape, which that's just something you're going to kind of, you know, get used to the more you play the champion. But then we'd be a lot higher health and potentially able to outplay under the turret, so instead we end up dying. I think, yeah. So, does that make sense?
That was a very great one. Yeah.
Cool. And also, yeah, again, we've never had information on jungle because of the warding, which is why it's also like a surprise when that Hecarim ganks. Whereas, again, it's a lot easier generally to tell otherwise. I will say again about the jungle tracking thing, because it is important, especially as a late game jungle. Once you're past about 4 minutes, it becomes a lot more like they could be either place, because usually if they're clearing well, 4:15, 4:20 is when they'll finish clearing everything, and then it's like now they could really be wherever they want. So that is something to keep in mind. You know, on that last kind of wave that you're getting right before your the objective spawns, you're pretty unsure of where jungle is unless you specifically see them.
Yeah.
I don't know why he dropped it here. Oh wait, yeah, no, I don't know. I guess he wants first turret, but it's only 10k health, and it almost died anyway.
Yeah, that was a weird one, man.
Wait, you could have killed this, actually. Maybe? Nah, it was close, but that was a fucking weird choice by him. And then, yeah, we saw him, so we should just be backing up, and you do. So, okay, so at this point, we can kind of look onto how we want to play a late game champion from behind. When we fall behind, your team is not like so far behind the game's unwinnable, but you're quite behind. And your goal really is just to get to 3 items at this point in the game. Because Runance is the most broken item, like in Wild Rift, honestly. So if you hit Runance, and then you maybe hit like a Wits and or whatever it is that we choose to go after, like you're going to be able to carry a game even if, say, the enemy are on 4 items. And so at this point, your goal is pretty much to just get the waves. After you get the waves, you try to go find a different wave. So like here, what you should do, you walk up, you auto this. Because you see them there, I'm fine with you just going for turret, because we see literally everyone on the map. So you should go for turret right now, which you do. So that's correct choice, right? Because they're being dumb. And so they give you a bunch of free gold, you back off after, I have no problem with that. If Rumble insta pushes the wave, you should get the wave first. I guess if you want to try to W ult, no, you can't. So yeah, you should just be getting this wave, because you know Rumble's going to push into you. You should be like scrolling your map. Is he pushing really hard? If he is, you go on that wave right away. Because again, the only goal for you is gold. The goal for you is not to help your team. The goal for you is not to fight a lot. None of this. We don't care about that. Your goal from pretty much the 7-minute period until the 12-minute period when Baron spawns is just gold. I don't even care about the dragon. Now, like, if your team's doing well enough, you can go to the dragon just to be there, right? But It's only if your team is doing decent and you think like we can win that fight. So your goal is just go up to this top wave, because again, we know the top wave is going to come here. You can use, you know, your wave as a reference that wave is going to come as well. And then yeah, you get that wave, and then if you push that wave immediately, you get to then come to another part of the map. But instead, what you do, you come and share a wave with Ahri. Okay, now you got 100 gold, Ahri got 100 gold, and this 100 gold here is going to die. So it's like you could have gotten that 100 gold anyway, then Ahri gets an extra 100 gold, and you realistically would actually get 200 gold here, right, from this wave. And then you get to roam on a timer now, where the enemy have to respond to a wave. Because now, let's say you do come to mid after that wave, which is what you should do because you can find gold then after. Well, now someone probably goes top wave, right? And so now there's one less person that could be mid here. Whereas you see this Rumble, he's currently ulting, he's currently mid. This Rumble can't do that if that wave's pushed, and you just do it a wave later. Or if he does still do this, then he loses 200 gold. So like we're happy either way. But when you do something like this, you're essentially like, again, we've spoken about, right? Kai'Sa is a weak early game champion, and you're behind the curve of the game in terms of gold. And yet we're going into a position where it's very likely that a fight occurs, because mid lane is the most likely, you know, place for a fight to occur, especially in the lower to mid ranks. Like so that's what we expect to happen. And yet we go here a wave later, and now nothing's really going to happen in mid afterwards. And we just end up like missing out on a couple, you know, a little bit of gold, pretty much for no reason. And then, yeah, we end up getting caught as well, which again, like we had information on the Rumble's whereabouts as well, which is the other kind of nice thing on that previous wave. Like you saw him pushing it, so you would see him. Like there's no way you would die, right? But instead, because then you go up later, you don't have that vision, everything like that. Which then, if I'm actually looking at it more, you're on two wards. And in terms of your warding when you're behind, it's kind of the same in the early lane as I told you, right? Where early lane, you're behind, you want to ward defensively. Like if, say, you know, you're into a Draven, whatever, you just ward whatever is convenient. It's the same here. So like literally you go up to farm this wave, you can ward this if you want, or you could just ward up here. But you need to get information just enough that allows you to farm. So your warding, again, same as, again, your purpose is to get gold, right? So even your warding is just to get you gold right now. And obviously it's a little hindsighty because obviously we, like, you know, I see him come to you, right? And that's sort of what triggered me to specifically point that out. But that's still an important thing to mention, is like you don't have to waste as many things if you're just warding defensively. Your wards aren't really going to be very aggressive because you're behind, so it's hard to get that prio to then go ward objectives, ward camps, and all that stuff. And then again, you go on to another mid wave when I just want you getting an additional top wave. Like even after we die or we lose our flash here, what's Rumble really going to do after? Like he's not going to like kill us. Like we see him now, so he's not just going to surprise us again like he did here. And so the problem is basically, to kind of summarize, right? In the mid game, what you're doing is instead of catching the additional wave, right? Like you caught one wave and then you go mid, you need to catch that wave and then catch the wave that's about to get there. Because now what happens is you get that wave, then you go back here, then you go back here again, then you go back here. But you could get here, get another one, and then go here, and you're just, it's less time wasted, and yet you're still getting the same amount of gold instead of sharing gold. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
And then, yeah, now the lanes are weird, I mean, which is just partially like your Ahri kind of being dead, but it's fine. And then, yeah, we did lose our flash, so he actually could have killed us if he knew we had no flash ult, but clearly, like, Hecarim wasn't aware of that. And so going bot here would be cool. I would prefer you go bot. Again, your goal is to get gold. And so even like a lot of times, right, if you're like pretty strong, whatever, you don't really want to go out when you're half HP, you don't have all your whatever, you want to recall. When there's a wave that's this straightforward to get and the only goal is really gold, you might as well go here right away. Because again, if we think about the time waste, right, you're going to, let's say, recall, then come here. When if you go here, then you recall, then you go back out on the map, it's quicker and you get to spend more gold because you're getting that additional gold. So it's again just about those like sort of like small wastes of time, and you'd actually also be protecting that turret. Now I will say the fact that you're protecting mid turret is not really a bad choice. Like this is fine. So this is more of a thing where it's like I don't really have a big problem with this, but because it's been like a consistent issue, it's something I still want to mention as like another option was to get that bot wave. But protecting the mid turret so you don't lose it is not like a bad choice at all. So yeah, I mean that's still fine. But we can kind of see gold wise as well. I'm gonna look at gold because you pulled up the scoreboard. So like we're down 2k, and we have like one champion who's like kind of doing really well. But generally speaking, the later parts of the game, you're probably gonna have to be the carry. Warwick falls off. Ahri is not crazy strong, and then like maybe if Fiddle does well, but you kind of have to understand again, like use your early game champions who are doing pretty well as a buffer to get to the late game, rather than thinking oh, they're doing really well, I have to follow them every time they make a play. Because, like, really, you're just not that useful as a following champ early on in the game because your damage is lacking. And then the time that you do want to follow is an objective. So it's like, because your team's doing all right, if your team chooses to contest the objective, you can go there if you think, like, it's a winnable fight. But in between those objectives, like, there's no reason to go there. So you should get this bot wave, and then, again, what should you do after this bot wave?
Yeah, the next one, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I don't do that.
Yeah, and so we'll see. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that's what we'd want you to do. It looks like you do, and even here you can farm this camp if you really want. Or maybe it's not there actually, but so you do get the next wave, which is perfect. So this is exactly what I want you doing, and this is what I want you doing consistently. So I'm happy to see that here. And then now we have a timer where now there's about 30 something seconds for the objective. You could at this point take a recall if you want. I don't even know what the Fiddlestick's saying. But you could take away like a recall and then go and rotate with your team. So this choice is pretty good by you. Like, I'm happy with that. Once your team wins the fight, like, I think it looks really winning already, I would immediately decide, now I want gold. Because, like, your team's just going to get this objective for free. You should go bot now because you want to protect that turret from Fiora. And you should just start recalling rather than kind of sticking around. Because if Fiora shows on bot especially, if she doesn't show, then it's, like, kind of fine to stay. And so she shows mid. So what she should be doing is being bot. And if she was doing the proper thing, then you should be recalling and matching her. Even here, you need to be protecting mid turret, right? Like, you see how now you're just giving up a bunch of gold where maybe you should have protected the bot, like we said, but then also mid is the kind of the same like reasoning, right? Is just, we need to be getting these waves. We already realized the fight's won. Whereas again, now your focus is just, oh, the objective, but the objective's already gotten no matter what, whether you're there or not. So we need to kind of be more decisive in like where we're going rather than wasting this time. Because again, what does you hitting this really do? It gives your team 5 more seconds. Like, that doesn't matter, right? So kind of the same thing. Because yeah, basically the only other thing apart from like trying to get gold in the mid game is also trying to protect turrets, right? So it's like, that's obviously denial of gold from them. So those are really your 2 goals. When you're like behind, when you're ahead, like a pretty significant amount, you can start to still push a wave, but be more like keen on kind of going towards, say, the mid lane and getting that wave and looking for fights, basically. But I mean, still your goals kind of always hit that 3-item spike, and then you're like kind of broken. So
yeah, I mean, it's crazy the power spike you get.
Yeah. I don't know if like random W spam does anything in these types of situations too. This is a more nitpicky thing. In lane, it's like kind of nice poke, especially if they have no healing. But the problem is you're doing this right on the wave, and it's a long cooldown. So we expect like the most likely time for a fight to happen or for something to surprise us is a wave. And so you using this cooldown now means that, say you do hit it, your passive wears off by the time you're able to start autoing. And it's 20 seconds, so you're not going to have it for a while. So like saving it for a time where maybe you're actually going to burst someone down is going to be important. Let's say like you had your W evolved, and like maybe it's different. But yeah, so not a huge thing, but something to still point out.
Yeah, I know, it makes sense.
How much CC do they have? I'm trying to think. No, cleanse is okay here, but yeah, I'm trying to think about cleanse versus exhaust. It's kind of fun now that you get to actually choose between cleanse and exhaust as an ADC rather than just exhaust every game. But yeah, cleanse is good here. It's kind of an OP spell. And then same thing here. With the gold, we're spending time in mid with our Ahri. When there's a wave that's about to come topside, I'd already want to be starting to go to that top wave. And the nice thing is, as you're waiting for that top wave, you just farm a Gromp here. And it's really important to use this certain timer, which is usually around 10 minutes and 30 seconds until 12 minutes-ish, which is the time before Baron, where it doesn't actually matter which side you're on. Because obviously, I want you on mid/bottom side as soon as this Baron spawns. But you have this wave where nothing's going to happen. Because obviously there's no Baron. And so this is the time where you can catch an additional wave. And again, it's just about catching all those additional waves on those timers that don't matter. So it's like when you did the dragon, you did it perfectly right, where you got the bot wave, you got the second one, then you go. This is basically the same sequence where you would get this top wave and then you can go after. But when you end up staying mid here, now they get that side lane pressure for a more important situation, which is once the Baron actually spawns. So it's like, you know, more dangerous. And again, another thing about when you're worried versus not worried to side lane is like, you have flash ult, so it's kind of okay. You're probably not going to get one shot by Fiora. And then positioning here just made no sense, which is more of a just mechanical sort of like if we're evaluating the situation, who's the strongest member on our team? It's Warwick right now. Warwick immediately died, and then our Fiddlesticks basically missed his ult. Like that's no damage, right? Like this is over, and we need to be able to identify at this point there's no possible way to win this fight, and we need to just leave because we don't want to be dead for Baron. But you try to kind of pressure despite, you know, everything we know, and we should know Fiora is coming here as well if we were really aware. Now I think it's like reasonable to not have been aware of that, but we just saw her on side lane and she didn't go on to the next wave, so she either recalled or she came, right? There's only two options. And so we should also know we're probably going to get flanked. So we have a dead teammate. Our Fiddlesticks wasted flash ult and hit nobody. And we're not really in a good spot gold-wise already, so there should be no way that we're like in this position. And then, again, mechanically speaking, you should be autoing this Fiora, because then you can ult behind her and reposition. So it's really important when you do fuck up. That's what I love about Kai'Sa. Like, mechanically she's kind of hard, but you can be an idiot play her because she's so forgiving with her mobility. And so when you end up realizing, oh, I fucked up, because it's going to happen no matter how good you are, you're going to do this on accident at some point, you can auto her and immediately ult behind her, and like now you're literally right with your team, right? So being aware of like that type of thing as well. Whereas here you didn't even auto to ult, you just like tried to pull your ult without realizing you hadn't autoed anyone yet. So like that's an important thing that we've seen twice, right, with the Hecarim gank earlier. So that's something mechanically speaking, but yeah. And then yeah, we lose Baron as well, which again partially team's fault, like team got caught at a bad time or whatever. But it's also important to mention, right, if you had pushed this top wave, it wouldn't be pressuring as much like in the Baron, whereas it was pushed pretty far. I also don't know why your top laner is getting flamed. Like he's playing the best on the team. It's like, I mean, he's not playing really well. He made a dumb mistake, but like, it's so odd how people choose who to flame. Like, it doesn't even make sense much. Also, you need to just queue, like, as a habit between your abilities, like, a lot more often. Or between your autos, rather. I mean, you should kill her. And again, you didn't need to there, but alt auto reset is, like, possible if you needed it. Again, you didn't. I'm glad you didn't waste your ult for one auto reset, but it's just something I want to point out because it's something important to know as well. Like, if she ended up maybe being higher health or healing or whatever. And again here, we don't love being in this fight. It's kind of fine because, you know, you have extra people, so you can just try like to see maybe this is a comeback angle. But it's also kind of preferable to be on like a side lane or whatever. And then you had a really nice angle here. And this is a hard situation, so it's not something I'm going to nitpick. But if we are looking at it to be really nitpicky, you should have been walking up and in this, right, and outplaying her rather than and then flash over the wall after, because you had enough damage for her. And like you have your invisibility, whatever, to kind of not take as much damage, but you panic a bit, which again, I'm not really gonna nitpick too hard because it is a very reasonable response in a situation like that, but it's something that could have happened. And then you should immediately be recalling for the wave. You recall like 2 seconds later, so it's fine. But it is again that kind of efficiency thing where you're just like your awareness is you're a bit slow on some of the decisions we make, or like how efficient we are with our time onto like which wave we go on and that type of thing, and then it loses us a lot of gold. Because I would say, with those different decisions we talked about sometimes catching an extra wave or not sharing a wave, instead getting our own wave and then going afterwards, like that time wasting would like we'd minimum have an extra 500 gold, realistically probably 1,000 to 1,500, and if we look at it, we only need 200. So like in that case, you'd have this Wits on this back instead of having the back again, right? So now you have to go here, you have to waste an additional 5-10 seconds, and then that 5 or 10 seconds likely loses us, you know, maybe 100 or 200 gold, because now maybe some of your teammates takes that. You should be recalling for your item, you do. So it's like all those like little things. And then maybe that 1,000 gold that, you know, we hypothetically could have been a stasis here. Maybe that stasis matters. Probably doesn't in this fight, but could have, right? And that's like the important thing is all these little details. It's not going to win you 47 more games, you know, of the next 100, but it is going to win you 1 or 2 or 3. And that 1 or 2 or 3 of 100 is an additional 1 or 2 or 3% on your win rate. And obviously, like say you have a whatever, I don't know your win rate, but like say it's 52. Going from 52 to 55 feels really, really good. So it's like that type of thing as well.
It is 52, actually.
So there you go. I guess it works out. But the fight works out really well. You do a good job in this fight. You follow up properly when your team makes the engage. And so, I mean, again, you still got to your item breakpoint because, again, 3rd item by 3rd drag is where I want you getting. And you reached it, but it was like a very close call in a game where we definitely could have done it a little earlier. So it still works out well, and we have that soul. And I like that you cover the top wave here. I think that's really good as well. So I think like the awareness of the waves and a lot of things are good. But yeah, and I think you can catch an additional wave, which you do too. So this is also good.
Yeah, I feel like I sort of know what to do half the time, but then I just get caught up, like, what if my team's going to die, and maybe I just need to
Yeah.
just ignore my team completely and just farm.
I mean, it depends again on the situation, right? Because if you were ignoring your team on that second, like, dragon, it wouldn't be good. Because if we look at it now in hindsight, right, we got the soul, so that dragon really mattered. And the reason it made sense to go with your team on that dragon is because they were relatively strong, even if they were slightly behind. So you still, like, being there gives you a chance at winning it. But the problem is those times in between the objectives where you're going with your team. When there's nothing actually to do, there's no big risk of them dying, there's nothing like that. That's the timer where it matters. But yeah. And then also, I feel like your goal in a lot of ways in this fight, in these fights, like you basically have two goals, and to me, it's like either we're melting Hecarim because he's really strong if he goes in quick, or we're diving onto the backline of Kai'Sa or of Nami Jinx, and so it's like one or the other. But I always want you to kind of think about or think to yourself, what do I want to do in the fights before they happen? And so like that's just what I want to be going through your mind ideally. And yeah, I mean, okay, they just kind of end, so I think it's good. If you just ult into the back right now, like for example, okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. If you had literally just like set in your mind, which again, every time that you anticipate a fight occurring, which is going to be, you know, an objective spawning, or maybe like here, obviously you're going to start Baron, right? You need to think to yourself, how am I going to respond when something breaks out? And I just told you the two things. And so Hecarim just died, and so now what's your other purpose in the fight is to get the back line. And so what should you do right now on this current screen, do you think?
Oh, the back. Well, ult past Jinx and then just focus it.
You should ult Nami. It would be way easier. There's a couple of reasons why ulting Nami makes more sense. The first reason why ulting onto Nami, like all the way back here, is because you're in no danger then. Because Jinx is not going to hit you. So it's just way easier, right? And then you're hitting the champion who's potentially buffing their team or healing their team, where a lot of times you're going to want to target kind of like that, you know, buffing / enchanter champion rather than the ADC right away. Whereas like Jinx has a pretty high chance of killing you here if Nami does give E, W, whatever. So that's why, and again, I think it's fine to target Jinx. It's not like a huge thing, but in terms of like ideally, we would go on the Nami because she's also a little squishier, so you'd kill her quicker because the Nami or the Jinx has Bloodthirster probably, so like more sustain, whatever. So yeah, we go on there, but again, if you had it in your mind, then you're gonna immediately be ulting onto one of them. Instead here, you flash, where it's like now you say that you did ult onto Jinx or Nami, I don't really care who, you would kill whoever you kill, and then you flash onto the other, you kill both. But instead, we're panic flashing because we didn't actually think, like, who's really a threat to you? The only threat is Rumble really damaging you really hard. And if you ult away from him, regardless, you're fine. But instead, we have to flash away from him. So it's like thinking about how we want to use our spells in those fights, which, again, it's really hard to do mid-fight. I see why you would panic here because it's a lot of stuff happening. But if you talk to yourself or ask yourself the questions before it happens, then you're not going to have that panic moment. It doesn't matter, though. I mean, you still win the fight, so I guess it doesn't really matter, obviously, in this case, but yeah. And yeah, I just immediately go mid-wave. I guess, what's up? Sorry.
It could have been a lot smoother, though, if I'd have just ulted onto Nami, or just been decisive in anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a lot of the issues. I don't think it's like you don't know what to do. Most of the times you know what to do. You're still doing a good job of getting gold. You're playing your fights how you should. It's these small panic moments, which, yeah, they come from not thinking before the fight. And then it's a lot of this, I think the biggest problem is that you don't utilize your time properly when there's no objective. I think you understand when there's, say, you know, there's 35, 40 seconds for an objective. You understand what you need to do before that, how you need to be playing, like you've been doing exactly what you need once those situations are occurring. But it's like, and this is something I feel like has been my biggest improvement this season, is utilizing that time in between. So it's like, again, that 10:30 to 12-minute window before Baron's up when there's no dragon, that is the most valuable time in the game to accelerate your gold in comparison to your opponent. And then the other most valuable time is right after first Drake, usually. Where oftentimes, like, you actually did a really good job here where they went mid for no reason after first Drake and you got a bunch of those plates. There's times like that where you can accelerate your gold, or where you can, again, catch those additional waves those certain times on sides. Like, those are really your biggest things. And then the lane phase details we spoke about at the start as well, like getting on the wave initially, right? Instead of waiting, focusing on that prio and then using that prio to get a ward off onto a camp so that you can track jungle a bit better. So those are really like the main things I think that we see from this gameplay. And then when you play the fights, for the most part, you play the fights mechanically well. Oh, and then the auto resets. You could be using your auto resets and your wave clear a lot better. So like that optimization as well is important. But yeah, and I'm assuming you just win here. So.
I think we do, yeah.
You have Baron Elder. I mean, no coaching could tell you how to. It's just like you either do this or you throw for no reason. It's one or the other. Yeah. Also, do you ever try building Crit Kaisa, or are you just like 24/7 this build? Just curious.
To be honest, I've watched your video,
Yeah.
and you showed the build, and I've just been blindly following that. I do
Yeah.
obviously change them if they got healing and stuff like that, but yeah.
It's pretty fine to blindly follow, but I do if they're like if you're just into a 5 squishy comp, like they have like say Assassin Jungle, maybe like say Fiora or Jace top, like not super tanky, and then squishies everywhere else. That's gonna be time where I like Stormrazor, Magnetic, Navori, Infinity Edge. Just kind of like a crit build that's really like bursty, and like the crit's gonna be a lot better for one-shotting and bursting people. You can literally use the build you're using every game, but that's also an option that I do think is better when they're really squishy. So if it's something you want to try out, you can, but it's also not really like you don't really need to necessarily. I guess we're into Jinx again, so it's a similar matchup.
Yeah, so this one I got semi-fed, and I
Yeah.
was unable to carry. Ended up losing, and I feel like that's quite a good coaching game.
Yeah.
You know, why didn't I carry, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say same thing with the wave. I'd already want you starting to walk again to the opposite side here and then going up on the wave right away. Whereas when you do it like this, I mean, also if we think about their champions prefer you being grouped like this compared to what you prefer because it's a Lux. So it's also potential like a little annoying. But yeah, we get on this wave earlier, we're more happy, but instead, again, you're late in the wave. And again, you're not into Jackie or a good player, so they're not punishing you. But if you're into Jackie, your wave is already dead. And then like, okay, now he gets a word off like we were telling you could do. And maybe he's already able to poke you because you're focused on last hitting. Meanwhile, he is able to pressure you, you know, like this type of thing. So it's just something to keep in mind that will matter if, say, you are like against a Sovereign. I mean, even this is like, again, it's just, you could queue one time, like I said, like you're okay with queuing one time. You could have even just queued this just for that little bit of extra quickness so that they can't freeze it, so that you can go ward. And it's like, this specific situation, you don't have to really queue it. You could just auto whatever. But again, we should be warding the camp right now. Same thing we spoke about before. But the only thing I do want to mention with the warding the camp, because it sometimes people will be overly concerned with this, you don't have to ward the camp if it's not a convenient situation. So again, you want to push fast enough so you give time to push it, but notice how the wave's already coming here. I don't really want you warding it now because it's too late and now you're going to lose prio if you go for it. So the ward is not something to greed over. The ward is like, it's nice if we can get it. If we can't get it, you do your normal ward. So don't obsess over it. But again, if you did the things we said, then you'd be able to push quick enough where you do have the time to do it, basically.
Makes sense.
And yeah, your goal in lane as well as Kaisa is to squeeze a lot of small leads. Like you're not really expecting kills, and then sometimes you'll get a game like this where you maybe happen to get kills. Maybe your jungle ganks a lot. Maybe your Nami just pops off. Maybe the enemy into whatever. But you're never really like trying to get that. Your goal is squeeze all these little things. So your goal is get that warding information so you have a really low threat of dying. Your goal is get that little HP lead so if your jungle does come, then the gank happens and you kill. Like squeeze those little autos. Your goal is to have the prio so you have the level lead, so then again you're in less danger because if you're up a level you're never really going to die. And then again here it's even like right now, auto this minion, queue the minions. These 3 minions should get queued.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and again, like obviously I'm pointing it out a lot, so like you're kind of aware of it. I'm sure you're seeing it at this point, like oh, I could do that now. So it's not something we need to talk about every time, but I'll also like mention it since there's not much else going on in the lane right now. And then this auto also doesn't make sense. Again, we're going deep enough to just be like, oh, you shouldn't do this or an auto. The reason this auto doesn't make sense is because there's no real last hit or way to like punish them. You'd rather just be getting the wave pushing right away and then last hit after, or auto after. Whereas walking up for an auto like this, when you have minions that can potentially target you, like basically this auto is really safe for him because there's no minion, right, that's going to target him. But this auto for you draws aggro of these minions and draws aggro of these. And then they are just able to auto back. So like you're getting same amount of autos off onto him, and then their minions are aggroing onto you, when you could just use your abilities and your autos for prio and then trade. And also, if we think about it right, Jinx loves trading in waves because she uses her rocket on the wave and then splashes onto you. And this is true of a lot of champs, right? Like Varus likes trading in waves because of Q, whatever. You like trading out of waves. And so your goal, again, especially with your champions, to push the wave. And then if we actually look at the situation, there's a Wukong ganking you and you guys are getting pushed under tower. And you have a very high chance of dying here because of the fact that you didn't push. So like even though your teammate got caught, that's his fault. If you did manage the wave properly, he wouldn't die. You know, and it's not blame for you, but it is something where it's like a lot of these situations that we don't even realize wouldn't happen, just wouldn't happen if we do something. So we could prevent our teammates from, you know, save our teammates from themselves, basically, like type of thing. And then again, auto the cannon, same thing. So we could clear a little quicker. but not. And even like your W, use your W to get that passive onto the cannon, right? It's just a little extra damage. It's like 1 extra auto, but again, it's that whole time thing. And then in the early game, so yeah, I mean, same mistakes in the early game. The warding the camp, going on the wave earlier, focusing more on prio, using abilities on waves, trading when we're out of waves because our Q does more out of waves. Yeah, I think that's like the main things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big snowball effect, though, isn't it? Like, if I don't do this early game, then I struggle even more in the mid game and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
so it's really, really helpful, the early game tips.
But yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't really, like in this case, you said you get ahead, so like it kind of doesn't affect much. So we'll see what ends up happening,
Yeah,
right? But
let's be honest. We'll find out.
yeah,
It was a couple of days ago this game, so
yeah. No, yeah, I make YouTube videos usually on the games that I played like the day before, and I usually end up forgetting like half of what happened as I'm like talking over it, so I get that. Again, the grouping thing, right? Don't want to be on the same side. We want to be on river side as much as we can, or at least just on the opposite side of our teammate, especially when they have AoE. And then again, your goal when you see something happening like this should not be to walk the far way. Your goal should be push this wave right away, and then like because you see a fight developing, you want to fight over that wave so you get the initial like walk into the fight. Whereas when you don't fight over the wave, now the enemy get complete control over the fight, and now you're just sitting here. Takes you way longer to go, and then by the time, oh nice, we autoed Wukong once, yay, and our teammate's dead already. So it's like that's what kind of happens.
oh god. Yeah, so it's a lot of letting people push when really I should not be doing that.
Yeah, and that's why I would have been kind of nice if we saw a game against a harder matchup, because it's a little different into those harder matchups, because these ones are easy, and that's when you really don't want to let them push for free. But when you're into the harder matchups, basically the way you're kind of playing it now is almost fine. The only issue is like if you get pushed too hard under your turret, you get dove by like a Draven or a Lucian or whatever. And that's why even in those cases, it's important to still push evenly. Like your goal is to match their push, because if you over push, then they'll freeze if they're smart. And then if they freeze, you can't walk up because you're into a Draven, he'll kill you or whatever. And so in those cases, you're just trying to match. So basically you'd be like, let's just like go like back here, right? Let's just say the wave is neutral here. So you see their minions currently this health. You're trying to get as much as you possibly can, the minions the same health. So in this case, you would auto Q because that would get the minions roughly same health. And then you're basically just constantly trying to keep that health. And ideally, their minions are like 1 auto ahead of yours or 1 auto behind. You don't want it to be the same auto, because I don't know if that makes sense, but you don't want the health to be the exact same auto, because then if you guys are both autoing the minion at the same time, they can usually like go on to you right after. Whereas say their minion, like your minion is say 1 auto lower, so they're going to auto it first, well then it's still going to push into you slowly where you can farm it pretty safely. But if you're into a hard matchup and their strength is level 2, so like Draven Thresh level 2, very scary, ideally you push the wave so that you can get the level 2 first, because if they get the level 2 first, they're able to start zoning you. So it's like there's a lot of different like nuances to specific matchups, but basically your goal at the end of the day is to manage the wave in a way where you're able to get as much gold as possible, like especially in a hard matchup, while still denying them their power spikes. So you need to understand, like, just because I let them push into me, that might be really dangerous to let them push into me, especially like, let's say again, like maybe a different lane bully like a Caitlyn. Caitlyn especially, it's really important to have prio, because if Caitlyn's ever able to push you under your turret, she starts poking your turret for free, and then you lose 2 or 3 plates by the time the lane ends. And even if you don't die, you're going to be down 500 to 700 gold just from that. And so you also have to understand the goal of the champions. Again, goal of Draven Thresh is to all in you, so you're trying to stop that level 2. Goal of Caitlyn, poke you, so you're trying to stop that poke from happening through wave management, that type of thing. But and yeah, I would just recall at this point. I mean, like the thing is, this dragon's gonna be a distraction enough where you kind of don't need to immediately be on the wave. So I just recall, spend my gold. Whereas you're gonna get dove here if they're smart. Oh wait, no, they're on drag. They're not on drag. So I thought they're on drag, so I'm wrong. Never mind. If they were on drag, then I would say you don't want this, because you could get dove if Wukong's smart. But he's actually not here, so it's fine to farm. So never mind. But we are definitely looking for a recall timer when we can, and so you get it off. So that's good. Yeah, it doesn't look like you get fed. Maybe you get fed later, but for the early game, it just looks like it's a pretty hard early game.
I feel like I'm doubting myself now.
I mean, maybe you have like a double kill at some point and then you start snowballing. Like, you never know what happens. And so, I mean, goal mid game here is the same because we're in the same situation really, where we're down a lot. We're not especially strong, and yeah, a lot of that is led to the early game as we spoke about. But now at this point, you should try to bait pretty hard because your teammates here. So yeah, like this is an awareness thing where it's like it's actually totally fine to take damage here and to trade hard and again be on the wave, all this stuff, because your jungle's here, and especially when you're behind. Like if you have a chance of getting a kill based on like say your jungle's roaming, your mid's roaming, whatever, you need to be really hard trying to force that and bait that. So here, like what you should do is walk up and try to dodge Lux Q, because what happens if you don't dodge Lux Q? You cleanse immediately. And so if you're thinking to yourself, okay, I need to bait them to walk forward, how are they gonna respond when you know I walk forward? They're obviously Lux is gonna Q E. If she lands her Q, she's gonna ult, but you're gonna cleanse right away, so her ult will miss. And then you're gonna be fine with that, and then Jinx is just gonna auto and maybe W. Like that's not enough to kill you, and then you have your ult to reposition, you have your flash, and then by that time your Zed's definitely gonna go for it, do something. Whereas here, you basically do nothing, and then you ult, and you don't even ult behind them. Maybe you do? No, you ult to the side. Like you should be ulting directly behind because you should already understand she's dead no matter what. I don't actually care about taking damage. She's dead, like 100% here, just obviously, right? And so if you ult behind, you're able to ult or auto the Jinx more. But when you do it like this, then she's able to run away easier. And you were also pretty late. You weren't decisive. So I don't even know if you were just like even thinking about the fact that your teammate could gank. So it's like, yeah, all those little things mean that this could have not worked out. It works out. We still get the double. Doesn't matter. But like, that's the type of thing where, again, if maybe the enemy did have flash or cleanse or something to respond, or the enemy jungle showed up randomly, it could have mattered. So.
Yeah, totally.
I think you might just have to leave this wave even. Like, I think you just give turrets. Because, yeah, I don't think you can really defend it. Yeah. And then you get a top wave, and then after you get this top wave, you should get one more top wave, as we kind of spoke about before. And yeah, so your gold here is, you're decent gold compared to your opponents, but you're a little behind because your team's behind. So yeah, you should get this wave, you get the next wave because you have the ward. And see, this is the defensive ward I'm talking about, right? Your goal is to farm these next two waves, so you ward like this, it's perfect. Because then the enemy can't, you know, be a danger to you. And so since they're kind of all here, you just let the second wave push into you. But as long as we stick around for the next wave, we're happy. But we go mid right away. No, we go here. Okay, so perfect. We get the wave. And then now that we got this wave, now we have some time created where now we can go roam or something. If we see a fight breaking out bot, you can just go for top turret, which you do. So again, this is perfect. Like this is exactly what you should do. You're like, okay, I'm gonna get the wave, and now what's the place I can get the most gold now? And that's gonna be the gold bounty on the top turret. So it's exactly what you should do. And you shouldn't be scared of dying as well. It's like if you die, you don't actually care because it's this timer where there's no objective. So obviously we don't want to die, but it's not the end of the world. You do it perfectly. Hopefully you go bot and you go for the bot turret now.
Don't think so.
Yeah, so that would be ideal because it's the easiest turret to get at this point. And the wave topside's kind of pushing. I mean, going for this kill is fine. You just got rooted. Okay, I was gonna say why'd you ult so short, but you just got rooted. And so yeah, you try to go for that, and then now we see a top wave coming, so we can just go to the top wave again because our teammate got the bot turret. So like again, the goal would be go bot turret because if someone came, then you'd be able to break through them. But since your teammate already got the turret, now we see a top wave. So we're just constantly kind of shifting to basically wherever the gold is. But yeah, I mean here, like everything you've done in the mid game is exactly where you should be. For like the last minute straight, you've gone everywhere you should be, and you've gotten the gold. Go up for another wave, like we said, and you want to get the Gromp first. I'm totally fine with that. So everything here in the mid game in terms of where you're getting gold is a lot better than the last game. And I mean, yeah, now you go bot. I think that's fine as well. I don't know if you end up killing in this fight or not. What's up?
That was a risky portal.
Yeah, I mean, I respected when you have ult flash. Or actually, you didn't have ult, but you still have flash. Like, it's not the craziest thing ever. And yeah, you do well in the fight, so perfect. You should immediately go bot, farm 2 bot waves, which you do again. I mean, literally for the last however long, like you've done everything that I say you should do. So I mean, it's pretty much perfect. And it has been a really good sequence here. And then yeah, I think this is where you get a lot stronger. But your team is still relatively weak. I go up in an additional top wave. You do end up going there. And then at this point, you're not gonna have enough gold for QS. You have cleanse anyway. I'm thinking like I want the QSS for the fight if I can get it, but you don't have time for it. Because a lot of times what I'll do in terms of itemization is if I hit the breakpoint I want, like second item by second drag, third item by third drag, and then say I'm recalling on 800 or 1,000 gold, I'll buy a stasis or QSS just because I know it's gonna get a lot of value since a fight's about to happen. Whereas say that I'm like hitting that breakpoint super, super early, then I'll try to get towards my 4th item instead, right? Like that type of thing. But here you're a little off pace to hit the QSS, so you don't get it. That's fine. And then your teammate dies, and so at this point I'm already like, I'm not gonna fight. I would recall and go bot immediately and just try to get gold, because now like the dragon is impossible. If you want to go farm a camp as well, you can farm a camp. Like I don't really care too much specifically. It's just as long as you're getting gold. Yeah, they say leave Drake, so your Malphite's doing the right thing. And then yeah, you should just go bot here. I hope you do. It looks like you're kind of looking for it. You might go mid first, then go bot, which I'm fine if you take the mid wave and then you go bot right after. You found a kill angle. Again, I'm fine with this, right? As the play develops, you decide something different. You go bot. Again, like literally the last 2.5, however many minutes have been exactly what you should do with everything. So, I mean, it's possible even that this game just ends up being an unwinnable game that just like sometimes happens. How long is it since they killed Drag? Okay, it's actually pretty long since they killed Drag, and you go up for a wave that's past the midway point. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I don't know whether you remember me mentioning the lack of cleanse last game, but this is where it happens.
Yeah, but no, I mean, this is the issue is like, so again, when you're going to go up for a more aggressive or scary wave, you need to have flash, ult, you know, these type, but you have nothing apart from cleanse. And you go up on an additional wave, and I'm imagining it's kind of the greed for finishing the item. But you go up on a timer where also your death timer is roughly 30-something seconds at this point. And so you're also like giving Baron potentially. And again, they have not been on drag for 20 seconds, so they could be anywhere on the map. So even I don't really care if you mess up your cleanse as much as I care about the decision to go past the midway point. And also our Nami's backing, everything like that. So I guess she ends up staying, but still it's a really risky choice. So
yeah, to be fair, by the time I recalled, I could just wait for like 2 seconds and get that gold anyway. So it is stupid.
Well, you actually just could have gone and farmed your teammates' Krugs because the Krugs are actually just up. But yeah, I mean that as well. You could just wait. Like, either would work. And then yeah, now you're ending up being dead. I mean, this is probably where the shift happens. I mean, I really like the decision making up to this point though. And one mistake like this happens, it's not the end of the world. The main thing is, yeah, we don't walk up past the midway point if we don't have pretty good information or a lot of really good defensive things like ult, flash, cleanse, and our teammates are in a position to help. And yeah, I mean they get Baron. We'll see what we can do from here, but it's probably more of a tower defense and like sort of pray that the game works out. You farm. I'm fine with that. You can't really go up on a top wave because you're kind of in danger if you do. But I imagine they won't like end. Like there's still an angle to win most likely after this, because you are still really strong and your team's not like super behind, and you have okay front line. But we'll see. Mechanical thing again, small thing, so I don't care too much. But you should be auto E, right? Like here, auto E from attack speed, auto W, just like, or auto Q rather. Get that quicker clear when there's like so many minions here and everything. But
I
not the biggest.
That extent. I used to play Riven on LoL PC, so I should be well acquainted with attack weaving.
Yeah, well that's good. I mean, it'll be easier for you then to get used to. So. Yeah, I mean they're bad with this Baron, so like they didn't sync their waves properly. So, I mean it's still a fine, honestly. Like that, even like that death. Like again, if you play really well up to this point, then you make one mistake, it's like I don't really care, you know. Sometimes it's gonna throw the game because it happens, but that's really a mistake which I don't think is an unreasonable one. And you play super well in this game up to this point. Again, the lane phase is a lot of the issues we spoke about, but later on, I think here you can probably end up ulting in and then cleansing, and like you're gonna pop off in the fight. I think you end up carrying this fight anyways, but like. Again, if we think about how the enemy are going to respond in the fights, this is the type of thing that I want, again, going through your mind. So it's like, we already see Wukong. He's probably about to use his W, I'm imagining. If we're paying attention to that, he has no W. He's not scary to us anymore because he doesn't have good gap closers, and I have a flash if he E's onto me, or I have cleanse or whatever. And if we think about who else there is, there's a Jinx. There's nothing Jinx can do that scares me. And again, they just use their like ult, for example. And so we can, again, ult into the backline and then use our mobility to reposition, and then we're targeting the backline who are less scary to us compared to Wukong, who is really scary. Whereas you put yourself directly into the line of fire of him. And again, like I said, you have your repositioning spell. So basically, like a lot of times when you're trying to burst down a squishy champ, or you have like a target that's important, but there's then something else dangerous to you, if you know that you have ways to respond, then you can still go for that play rather than just sitting and autoing. Because what ends up happening when you sit in auto, like it might still work out here, but it's a lot more like kind of scary basically. Or less likely to work out, but in this case, obviously, like it works well. So. I imagine you're still able to win this fight, but maybe not. No, I guess not. Fine though. Again, here, like, it's again, you could have autoed and then eat. So like small damage thing, right? Something we're always trying to do. And you have such big attack or large attack speed, high attack speed, whatever, that like it's really easy to get that up, or get those things off. And then I think they have 2 Drakes, so it's kind of important for you to recall for stasis and contest this. But I would recall first before contesting, which yeah, you don't. I mean, if you do this, then like this is how you really throw the game. So like the other thing is people slightly overvalue Soul. Like it's really important, but it's not game losing the way that Elder or Baron's game losing. So like say that the enemy do Elder here or do Soul and they get Soul, and then one of their teammates gets caught randomly within the next say 30 seconds to a minute, which is extremely likely. It's likely that your teammate is too, but like it's possible. And then you get Baron, you're in a better spot than they are. But say it happened like the other way, right, where like they're on Baron right away, of course you have to instant contest. So when you do this, now you basically also have no chance of winning the fight for the maybe you do, but like maybe you're the GOAT. But you have pretty low health, no flash, no stasis, 2k gold we're sitting on. Like this is just a really bad position to be in, and your teammates were dead as well. So like if the enemy insta started it, they would have just gotten it. And this is a thing people do very often where they only see like what's right in front of them, and they're really worried like if the enemy get this certain thing, the game's just kind of over. But they don't identify correctly what really ends the game. And what ends the game is this, right? Where you guys died. Now they get Soul and they get Baron. And like, of course, team wipe plus Soul plus Baron is game ending. And if we look at it realistically, you had a 10% chance of winning that fight. With 2 people dead, you have health, you no flash. But say you recalled, you grabbed your stasis, you spent that other 1k gold, and then your teammates respawned, and we actually saw the enemy were slow to getting the dragon, so you would have actually been able to contest. Then it's fine. So it's that type of thing where it's like, you probably would have lost this game anyway, but you definitely had a chance to pop up in a fight with a 3-item Kai'Sa, who now would have been 3.5 plus stasis. So basically that. We'll go into the notes now. I think a lot of the notes from the second game are the same as the first, so we won't have too much more from the second. Maybe some like team fighting things, but yeah, first thing is just auto reset with all abilities. Second, why is my brain lagging? Focus more on wave prio. Wave prio level 1 and use prio to board camps. Auto bigot or highest health minion for better wave clear. Q more often for wave clear. Then generally trying to crash 4th wave or BF sword. And so like the reason it's really important to understand that it's 4th wave is because a lot of times as the 3rd wave is coming, you don't need to like clear it super fast. You want to just build up a slow push, so you push it slightly faster than the enemy. And then as that 2nd wave comes, you get to crash it really easy because you have that additional extra like minion or 2. It's not always possible, but that's like the ideal scenario. But if you also just crash the wave, that's kind of fine. I don't know how to word this super well, but like make sure to crash a wave instead of letting enemy build slow push. Do you know what I'm talking about or no?
Yeah.
Okay. There's that. Then pay more attention to jungle pathing. Do bait when they are going to gank. I'm thinking specifically of that Zed scenario, right? Where he was going to gank and then you kind of were a little slow and not realizing that type of thing. Think about what spells enemy will use and how you can respond. Does that make sense when I say it like that? Like, you know, like for example, you might cleanse Lux Root, you might ult to dodge, whatever. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So yeah, then mid game basically then is a lot of like kind of the Gould things. So like mid game when no objectives are up, focus more on pushing your wave, then often get the next wave since it's going to already be coming, then roam until your lane's wave gets pushed back into you. So it's kind of like this teeter-tottering kind of effect where it's like you wait till they respond. If they just never respond to your wave after you push it, then that's good, because you just get an additional wave to go like top, right? Like you can then just at that point be like, okay, they're really not responding, I'm just gonna go top, and now I can break open that top turret. Like this is especially true if you've already broken their bot turret, that type of thing, like in the mid game. And then the other thing is kind of that timer, like the timer right before Baron, about 10:30 to 12, like 12 minutes in the game. You can look to break whatever outer turret is left. So it's like here at this point, instead of your macro being like, I want to go to my lane, I want to go whatever lane, you're going to catch a wave that you can, obviously, like if it's a really easy wave. But as soon as you possibly can, you want to be just going on whichever side lane is having the outer turret. Like if, say, just a tier 1 on bot or top is not yet taken, and you just like overstack that lane. Especially if you do know the jungle pathing and you know jungle's opposite of that turret, then you really, really hard push it. Because oftentimes what happens is the enemy top laner overextends to try to protect it, he dies, and then you get a second turret out of it, like ideally. Obviously that's the ideal scenario, but it's just like a way to kind of break that additional gold, or that type of thing. Generally team fights, in team fights, or before team fights actually, before team fights, try to figure out how it will go, so you are not surprised. I don't know if this makes sense. Do you know what I mean by this or no?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, okay. Have a plan going in.
Yeah. So just that. Are there any specific things we talked about? I'm trying to remember if there's anything else we mentioned. Definitely stand on Riverside and lane a lot more, because a lot of times you are like grouped with your teammate or with your support. So that's kind of something. But yeah, I think the main thing is you need to make sure you're focusing a lot more on your prio in the early game, as like a general thing. You need to utilize the timers better between objectives. Like actually, again, funnily enough, the second game that you showed me is a great example of exactly what you should do in the mid game when there's no objective. You did a really, really good job of getting all the waves you should, all the gold properly. And so you're clearly understanding that. It's just some games maybe we're not thinking about it as much. So those are kind of like the early and mid game things. In team fighting, then we just need to be a lot more understanding of how our spells like can be used to kind of dodge things, other things like that. Auto resetting between abilities, we mentioned that. The wave clear. Yeah, so I think that's all the things. Are any other questions or anything specifically, anything else?
No, I don't think so. It'd be good to share that crit build if you've got it.
Oh yeah, let me write that quickly. Crit build, so crit build only in squishies. And this is going to be like, I would say, yeah, pretty rare that you're going to do it. For runes, you can go all the same runes that you would go. There shouldn't be any rune switching, so it's just the items. But you are also going to go, you can go with defensive boots, but often you go damage boots because it's really focused on kind of one-shotting a squishy. So yeah, initially Stormrazor, then boots, often damage boots. But again, if you really want to go defensive boots, it's okay. Like maybe you see their full AD, whatever. You do that. Then you're going to go magnetic. Then you go Navori / Mortal. I think it's pretty straightforward when you would go Navori / Mortal. Basically Navori anytime you don't need anti-heal. And then Infinity Edge / Navori. So say you did do Mortal. I personally like Navori more because your cooldowns are really important to you. And so you get these really, really easy cooldowns, right? But if you've already gone Navori, you go Infinity Edge. If you prefer Infinity Edge over Navori even when you have Mortal, you go for that. Kind of up to you to decide if you want. And then just like Wits / GA last. So yeah, anything else?
That sounds nice and easy. Thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, of course. Good luck, and I'll see you later.